Hello, this is Deanne, otherwise known as Bendis. I'm here to share a workshop with you on Hekate, the wide wandering goddess. I bring this to you from Hekate's tribe. So there are many questions about where Hekate might be from. The earliest written records that we have of Hekate come from Hesiod's Theogony and Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. These were written pretty much at the end of the Greek Dark Ages, 750 to 652 BCE. And it says in the Theogony, Phoebe came to the desired embrace of Cos. Then the goddess, through the life of the god, conceived and brought forth dark-gowned Leto. Also she bare Asteria of happy name, whom Perses once led to his great house to be called his dear wife. And she conceived and bare Hekate, whom Zeus, the son of Cronos, honored above all. Hekate was not an Olympian deity. She came before them. She was often worshipped right alongside of Zeus, and she fought against the giants, and she also fought with Zeus against the Titans, using her torches as weapons. Because she was born to Asteria and Perse, she was considered a Titan herself. The information that we have comes from the hymn to Hekate, which was written at a liminal point between the old regime, the Titans, and the new, the Olympians. In the Theogony, she is a Titan as daughter of Asteria and Perses. Zeus honored her as a result of her support in that battle. But there's more to their relationship than just her support, because there is evidence they were seen together before these wars. Some say that Hekate might be his daughter. Some say that Hekate and Zeus were a couple. It is really unknown. Also from the Theogony, Hekate, whom Zeus, the son of Cronos, honored above all, he gave her splendid gifts to have share of the earth and the unfruitful sea. She received honor also in starry heaven, and is honored exceedingly by the deathless god. For as many as were born of Gaia and Ouranos, amongst all these she has her due portion. The son of Cronos did her no wrong, nor took anything away, if all that was her portion among the former Titan gods. But she holds, as the division was at first, from the beginning, privilege, both in earth and in heaven and in sea. Also, because she is an only child, the goddess receives not less honor, but much more still, for Zeus honors her. Here's the family tree as we know it, that all things began with chaos, and out of chaos came Gaia. And Gaia had these two children, Pontus and Uranus. And let's follow this side down here. Uranus had these three children, Prius, Cous, and Phoebe. Cous and Phoebe united, and they birthed Asteria, Leto, and Zeus. And over here on this side, Perses, who came from this tree, was together with Asteria, and together they birthed Hekate. So you see right away here that Zeus was Hecate's uncle, and Artemis and Apollo were her cousins. So was Hekate virgin, wife, mother, or lover? Throughout history, Hekate was described as a virginal goddess. the maiden daughter of Perses, Trimorphos. I may not pronounce these Greek names very well, just bear with me. From the Theogony, it says, I come, a virgin of varied forms. And from Pintor, the virgin with the red border, kindly Hekate, was the messenger for the word which wanted to come true. So Hekate had many, many names. Hail, many-named mother of the gods whose children are fair. Hail, mighty Hekate of the threshold. Hekate is thought to mean work from afar, but this meaning comes from the cult of Apollo and references to his skill with the bow and arrow, which means that Hekate probably was skilled with the bow and arrow as well. But her name could also be a foreign name with a likely connection coming from Anatolia. That's part of where Turkey is today. Because the names Hekate and Hekatos were both popular deities in that area. Epithets. Epithets are considered like titles. Because of Hecate's wide travel, she combined with and merged with and also replaced local goddesses, and she acquired these titles or epithets to describe those deities' attributes which were now hers. Some of those that she's associated with are Cabelia, Artemis, Bendis, Bonadia, Despoina, Brimo, Demeter and Persephone, Diana, Anodia, Selene, Isis. And here's a few too. If you'll look down, this column is the name, this column is the meaning, and then there's more names and meanings. Anodia, you hear a lot about Anodia, which she means in the road. So you travel with Anodia. Cathonia, she's of the earth and the underworld. Clydochus is a key bearer. Chorotropis is a child's nurse. I'm just sort of hitting these hit or miss. My shrine to Hekate is Hekate Profilos. As guide and companion, it was Hekate Profilos who guided Persephone to and from the underworld. The highest name we could give Hekate is Sotira, which means savior. So, how she wandered. There are actually over 200 known epithets for Hekate. That is such a variety. In Hecate's tribe, we honor Hekate in all of our rituals. She holds the center always. She has companions who also share the space with her when appropriate. Why we go by the epithets, like if we are going to be traveling to the underworld, we would use Hekate Cathonia, and most often she would be accompanied by Hermes Cathonios. This map right here shows you what ancient Greece was. It's huge. You can see this is Turkey over here. All this region was all considered part of the Greek Empire. It included Macedonia, Bulgaria, France, southern Italy, Sicily, parts of Turkey bordering the Aegean Sea, Syria, Egypt, parts of North Africa, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, all made up the ancient Greek Empire. And then, of course, the Romans came in and Hekate continued to spread all the way over to the Atlantic Ocean and north with the Roman Empire. Again from the Theogony, Hekate assists in childbirth, and the son of Kronos made her a nurse of the young, who after that day saw with their eyes the light of all-seeing dawn. So from the beginning, she is a nurse of the young. And this comment, Hekate decides who wins in battle, and when men arm themselves for the battle that destroys men, the goddess is at hand to give victory and grant glory readily to whom she will. We've seen Hekate take on many forms. In the beginning, Hekate was just a single form, one single goddess, seen carrying her different symbols and torches, and often she held Minnow two-handed. So the single image dated up to about the 8th century BCE, from the 8th century BCE until the 4th century BCE. She was seen in many poses, seated, enthroned, much like the images of Cavalia we see today, or she was standing holding her torches. And then it changed after 400 BCE. She became a triple-bodied goddess, quite often seen with a pillar between them. Hekate was found on the tower next to the temple of Nike at the Parthenon in Athens. That's one of the oldest images of her in a triple form. Then the triple image began to be seen everywhere, and from that point she was seen as having 3 forms. Theracephalic Hekate, that's a good word. Theracephalic means 3-headed. So normally Hekate was portrayed with the head of a woman. However, she also presented as the theracephalic, that means with an animal heads or head. The animal-headed Hekate represents a wild, irrepressible, and often dangerous being. Clearly, she was otherworldly and powerful. The Argonaut Hekate was triple-headed. She had horse, dog, and lion heads. These were later editions of Hekate, probably influenced by other places such as Egypt and Asia. Another image that Hekate is shown is this empty throne. You see it's 2-seated. I think it originally came from Sumer, located in Rhodes and chalk. 1 seat is for Zeus and 1 seat is for Hekate. So you just kind of use your imagination there, that they would be seated on that throne. And then there is the tetracephalos, which is a 4-headed Hekate. I discovered this one, and I thought it was really interesting when I was in the process of creating ritual for Hecate's tribe. And when I read the attributes of this, I realized that these were excellent 4-headed Hekate to call from the quarters. So this is how it reads: from whence they, the Chaldean tradition, hand down the mystical doctrine concerning the 4 elements and the 4-headed Hekate. A fire-breathing head of a horse is clearly raised toward the sphere of fire. The head of a bull, which snorts like some bellowing spirit, is raised toward the sphere of air. The head of a hydra, as being of a sharp and unstable nature, is raised toward the sphere of water. The dog, as having a punishing and avenging nature, is raised toward the sphere of earth. This particular quote came from Hekate Liminal Rites with David Rankin and Sarita Dieste. And we use this in each of the calling of the quarters for protection. She's also known as the rock goddess. Back then, stones were used to represent many different deities. For Hekate, hers was a black stone, which was a meteorite called a betel, a star stone fallen from the sky to the earth. In our ritual for Samhain, we traveled to Hecate's cave, and there in Hecate's cave was her big black stone. All right, let's talk about Maiden Mother crone images and Hekate being a crone. So many people today think that Hekate is a crone, when originally she was the Virgin Maiden. So where did that come from? And actually, it didn't happen until the 20th century. The origins of Maiden Mother Crone came first from Aleister Crowley in his poem Orpheus. And he wrote, "O triple form of darkness, somber splendor, thou moon unseen of men, thou huntress dread, thou crowned demon of the crownless dead." That phrase referring to Hekate. Then, in Robert Graves' Greek myths, he referred to Hekate as a crone. In Kore, Persephone, and Hekate were clearly the goddess triad as maiden, nymph, and crone, at a time when only women practiced the mysteries of agriculture. Kore stands for the green corn, Persephone for the ripe ear, and Hekate for the harvested corn, the Carlane wife of the English countryside. But Demeter was the goddess's general title, and Persephone's name has been given to Kore, which really confuses the story. In the Eleusinian mysteries, the maiden Hekate supports Demeter, and she becomes the guide to Persephone. And like Persephone, Hekate is referred to as the Kore. The mother, Persephone, in the original mythos of Eleusis, becomes the bride mother to Hades. She loses her innocence and becomes the queen. When she returns, she brings with her the tide of spring. And finally, the crone. Demeter transitions from being the mother and becomes the mother of the goddess who transitions to adulthood. In the absence of her daughter, life withers and the crops fail. Let's talk about her symbols. First of all, torches. Hekate leads the way. Her torch is held high in her yearly journey with Persephone from the realm of the living above to the realm of the dead below. Her torches are related to death. Her torches are related to death customs when she is depicted with one torch held up to the heavens and the other pointed down to the earth. And sometimes both are pointed down. It is thought that when statues are showing her with two torches, she is leading candidates toward initiation, which again is a birth experience. Daggers. We love our daggers. Daggers, associations, things that are associated to daggers, all right? To cut, carve, and create. In her hands, the dagger represents the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. It represents her ability to give life and to take life. The dagger induces fear. It cuts away what is no longer viable, and ultimately is a symbol of power. Her keys. Her keys open the gates to Hades. Her keys offer entry into 3 worlds. Her keys open gateways and doorways, and her keys give freedom to enter and to leave. So they are protection because they can lock out those who don't have keys. And finally, they represent transition, moving from one place to another across a liminal point. Serpents or snakes. This from the Greek magical papyri. Oh, fearful serpents on your brow, with poisonous rows of serpents down the back. That came, and the next comes from Sophocles in a writing called Root Cutters. She who is crowned with oak leaves and the coils of wild serpents. See them there? And she had dogs. We hear about her dogs a lot, especially they were black dogs, and they often called hounds. The baying of hounds was heard through the half-light. The goddess was coming, Hekate. That's from Virgil's Aeneid. She's associated with bulls and cows. The head of a bull, which snorts like some bellowing spirit, is raised toward the sphere of air. We saw that before when we were talking about the four-headed Hekate. And horses. Here, goddess queen, diffusing silver light, bull's horns and wandering through the gloom of night. Modius. I just recently learned what a modius is. This little top hat on her head is called a modius, and I suppose this pillar looks like a modius too, but it's really a pillar. So the modius is named after jars which were used to measure grain. And the modius is associated because it's grain, and the Eleusinian mysteries are focused on the grain and the corn and the birth and death, the seed and the whole ear of corn. This modius is very connected to the Eleusinian mysteries. If you're familiar with the Eleusinian mysteries, they occurred twice in one year, in the fall and in the spring, at the beginning of the growing season and at the end. And of course, the horse story is about Persephone's ascent and Persephone's return and the utter grief that was experienced by Demeter. Another symbol for Hekate are the oak leaves, sitting here with the acorns. She who is crowned with oak leaves, and that came from Sophocles. According to the Argonautica, there is an oak tree in the center of Hecate's garden. Poppies. Poppies. And from the poppy, her productiveness and the multitude of the souls who find an abode in her as in a city. And that's from, I can even say that, porphyry, or porphyry, I don't know how to say that. Anyway, poppies are very significant in the story of Persephone. When Persephone descended into the underworld, she carried poppies with her. Poppies, you see in the middle here, all of these seeds, they were considered a fertility and a birth symbol. And the myth there would be that she carries the poppies to be able to rebirth on the other side. At least that's what I think about it. Rays. You see her crown? You see how many rays are on it? There are 7 rays. Rays may indicate association with the moon and the sun. It's thought that the rays, 7 of them, were connected to 7 wandering stars, as they were called: the sun, Mercury, Venus, moon, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. They were also associated with 7 vowels that were used in the magical incantations. Other symbols for Hekate are stars. This is a 7-pointed star, and this is an 8. You see how it crosses 2 times, the 4. And then here is your 4-rayed. All of these are symbols associated with Hekate. And the moon. Some writings say that Hekate is the moon. Others say that she owns the moon. She rules the moon. Let's read this. This is from Plutarch. Subject to apparent wanings and waxings and transformations. Some call her an earth-like star, others a star like earth, and others the domain of Hekate, who belongs both to the earth and to the heavens. And we know roads and crossroads belong to Hekate, right? The Greeks, Romans, and many other ancient civilizations regarded both natural and man-made liminal points of all kinds, doors, gates, rivers, and frontiers, as well as crossroads, as uncertain places that required special rituals. and that's from a book, recent book, Crossroads Johnston. You see Hecate's faces turned in 3 directions to guard the crossroads, branching several ways. And that's from Ovid. All right, this is a piece that I'm going to share with you that when I was working toward becoming a torchbearer for the Covenant of Hekate, I had to write something about Hekate. And so I chose my favorite topic about Hekate for my paper. Hold on, so it comes up. It's going to come up. Here we go. Hekate, goddess of liminality as intermediary. Let me share with you the goddess most honored as the goddess of liminal time and space. It is our beloved Hekate, great goddess of the 3 ways, bridging earth, sea, and sky as we travel between worlds. In modern times, she is seen by many as a hag or an old witch stirring the cauldron. In early writings, however, she is portrayed as a beautiful and powerful maiden goddess. She was the only one of the ancient Titans who Zeus allowed to retain her power after the young Olympians seized control. She shared with Zeus the awesome power of granting all wishes to humanity, or withholding if she chose. She is the goddess of magic and witchcraft, and is often depicted holding 2 torches or a key. To me, the torches are to help light the way, and the key for opening doors on the journey. She has many other symbols, showing us her power in all ways. For me, she is indeed Hekate Sotira. She is known for her roles within the 3 worlds, but for me, her role is as who bridges these worlds is far more important. Throughout our lives, we are faced with a multitude of liminal moments, those thresholds over which we must step in order to move forward. The word liminal comes from the Latin limen or limon, meaning a threshold. The word threshold has several definitions. It can be a sill on a doorway or the entrance of a building. Ultimately, it means any place or point of entering or beginning. In psychology, the term limen means the point at which a stimulus is of enough intensity to begin to produce an effect. Liminal time, therefore, is that moment when something changes from one state to another. Examples would be dawn, when the morning sun rises high enough in the sky to bring daylight. Another is dusk, when the evening sun sinks into the horizon, bringing nightfall. Another is that moment when we move from a clearing into a deep fog which shrouds us in mist, and for a moment we stop all thinking. There is that moment when we first awake from a deep sleep, not fully awake, but no longer asleep. Plus, there is that state when we move from wakeful consciousness into sleep. There are also those moments of transitions between life and death, and from an unborn fetus to a living, breathing infant. Liminal spaces are thin places occurring on boundaries between spaces. This includes places like the boundaries between properties where fences or trees mark them. Also, edges between water and land, or even between plains and mountains, highways and grass. These are the edges which changes occur. Imagine the cliffs and boulders on the Pacific coast and the massive waves hitting and then retreating. That moment of contact before withdrawal, a liminal moment. As the earth travels around the sun, the year can be divided into 2 halves, the bright half and the dark half, as marked by the solstices. It can also be marked as well by the seasons. So let us look at some examples of Hecate's liminality. She not only separates realms lorded over by different gods, but serves as a transition goddess for said realms. As a result, she links gods together, weaving the threads of the universe. Because liminality was deeply associated with boundaries and crossroads, as well as the boundary between life and death, Hekate transformed from a liminal figure to a chthonic figure. In our spiritual practice, she can be thought of as an intermediary. As time evolved, the gods as more became transcendent, more and more removed from everyday life. Her role as a transitional and intermediary deity increased. In the Chaldean oracles, she is not only a universal deity, she also embodies the divine and serves as a connection between man and the divine. Because of her many aspects as well as domains, she is transformed to a liminal deity. In the Homeric hymn to Demeter, after Persephone is kidnapped, Demeter roamed the earth to find her daughter. She does not know where to look until Hekate emerges from her cave with her torches to tell Demeter that her daughter has been taken to the underworld. Demeter and Persephone are paired together in the Eleusinian mysteries as symbols of life and death. Accordingly, Hekate links the two of them together. Demeter represents what a bountiful earth provides. Persephone represents death and rebirth through her marriage to Hades. Hekate serves as a liminal figure connecting life and death, which is for us our greatest boundary. She also was thought to oversee the transition between life and death. This means that she would be the goddess given honor to while crossing major thresholds in their lives, such as marriage, childbirth, and at the time of death. Icons of Hekate were placed at entrances to cities, kings' houses, and with common people, and at the doorways of homes. She was the guardian of the thresholds, as those approaching had to pass in order to enter. Let us look at many kinds of liminal places, spaces, and times. A shaman, modern term applied to spirit walkers of many traditions, works in liminal time and space. She is an edge walker, one who walks between the worlds. Her work is on the edge, for she has one foot in this world and one foot in the other. She travels between them, walking the edge. She connects those of the spirit world with those of this one. Her work is to serve her tribe, to heal, to honor the gods of the people, to talk with the spirits, keeping life in balance and harmony with all. As goddess of the three worlds and the spaces in between, Hekate is the perfect guide for the spirit walker as she travels between worlds. For those of us who live a magical life, liminal times and liminal spaces are where our magical work is done. Liminal times and liminal spaces are when and where the veil between this world and the other world thins. Travel between them becomes easier for us as well as for spirits and deities. As we deepen in our work, we come to recognize these liminal times and spaces, eager to understand them and work with them, and finally to use them for the great work of the soul. We may choose liminal places to do our work, and certainly we may choose a liminal time, moonwise, seasonally, or in choosing the time of day. For any of these, we may call upon and receive assistance from Hekate. She is a perfect guide for us to honor and to put our trust in as we travel through our own personal transitions. We also have liminal times, not of our choosing. We can learn to recognize and use them for the best outcome. Many of them occur throughout our lives. Often, we fail to see what they are until they are behind us. At other times, we can see and understand and work with those changes so that what is coming is of the best quality for us. They are threshold moments, and we will step through, whether willing or not. We are fortunate when we can see these moments for what they are and embrace them, knowing that a birth of some sort is about to happen. As we recognize that we have just crossed a significant threshold, it is Hekate we may call on to guide us out of what may seem like chaos into a better understanding of the significant threshold we have just crossed. We have many liminal moments that we share: our coming of age, our first sexual experience, our wedding day, the birth of a child, the death of a loved one, a divorce, an ending of what once was, our first job, the birth of a wonderful creative project, the ending of a career, recognition of inevitable aging and the losses that come with that, and finally embracing death, however she comes. If we recognize them as thresholds, we can choose to honor these liminal times with ritual and ceremony, with Hekate presiding. Who better to give honor to? Most of the time, I love liminal times and liminal spaces. I don't always enjoy them when they are not of my choosing. I do, however, see these thresholds as potential, as opportunities to birth something new. Hekate has been my guide for many years. I'm not always aware of when she has stepped in, and certainly what she offers is not always what I would have asked for. However, because I have so greatly benefited by her guidance, I have total trust when facing any difficulty in my life. There have been times when in the throes of decision-making and unable to do so, it felt as though Hekate just kicked me on through. But the greatest aspect of that is that she is there on the other side. There, she was my trustworthy guide. It is for that reason I can totally recommend that when you are at liminal spaces or face liminal times of your life, I can think of no better guidance than what Hekate would give us should we call upon her to guide us through those thresholds. She would not take kindly to only being honored when we are in need. It would be best to find ways to honor her as best you can throughout the days and nights of your life. Allow her to become a part of you, walking with her as you walk your journey on earth. Material for this presentation all comes from the Circle of Hekate, Volume 1, History and Mythology by Sarita de Este. Thank you so much, Ma Vesper, for asking me to do this for you. And thank you all for listening to my little presentation. This is something new for me to do, and I hope it turns out well, and I hope that you benefit from it. Many blessings. Blessed be.